It's yours.
I'm listening to you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello?
I was just rambling until you showed up.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here. We have this absolutely awesome day in Bristol, Virginia. I'm actually sitting out on the deck looking out at bright sunshine, totally blue sky, nothing in the sky but blue. And these colors, bright yellows and reds coming in, and trees are changing, so it's that time of year. Butterfly just flew by. Anyway, we have a beautiful day. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe 60 degrees, and I'm delighted that you're here and delighted that we get to have this conversation. And we move to the next level of integrating this amazing work of first century Aramaic forgiveness. So delighted that you're here to be part of it. And Ms. Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
Nope, it is all quiet.
All is quiet on the Eastern Front. Okay, well then, let's jump right into the Gospel of Thomas. And we are on saying, let me get over to the right screen here. My dial-in screen and my conversation screen are the same one, so it takes a second. And by way of introduction, if you're new to the topic, the Gospel of Thomas is a text that was not canonized by the Council of Nicaea, so by some is not considered to be scriptural, but it purports to be recorded by Thomas Didymus, and it is a group of wisdom sayings that Yeshua offered to those who are ready to look at the inner teachings of Yeshua rather than the outer external teachings. And so the next saying that we have, it's 114 sayings, and we are at number 58. So yesterday we talked about him purportedly saying, and this is Greek translations, of course, who shall not hate his father, hate his brethren, hate his sisters, and recognizing that word hate isn't hate as in a love-hate relationship, but rather is those who can separate from the dynamics learned from or in relationship with their mother and their father. In other words, you got to face and work through your power person dynamic. If you never work through your power person dynamic, then you will never develop the brain cells, you will never develop the capacity to understand the core and the actual teachings of the man named Yeshua. There will always be that external. There'll be a parable, and the parable will make some sense. You go, oh, I hear it, I got it. But then there's the inner. And so one has to separate from the external, from the physical meanings, in order to get to the deeper true meanings. And some people have called the deeper true meanings metaphysical, but there is no metaphysical world. There is only the world of, if we want to look at it from that perspective, what we call the physical world, that world based in physics, and it's all physics, I don't care what level. If I know how a radio works, now there's nothing physical about a radio signal, but it's physics. And if I know how that energy system works, I can broadcast and I can listen to music and all kinds of things on my radio. But I'm not doing anything metaphysical when I'm doing that. It's all based in physics. And so when you recognize that we live in an energetic world, and that this energetic world is simply a place for us to reflect the energies that we have engaged in as creators, recognizing that probably the greatest atrocity that's ever been done to us as human beings down through the ages, and that we've bought into, is that we've had hidden from us the fact that you and I, that we are by nature creators. And if we don't know that, then we, with our minds, with the physics that happens as a result of the movement of energy in our minds, create things that we say, oh, I hate this, I don't want this, I never wanted this to happen. You know what? Your wanter isn't in your head. It doesn't matter whether you want it or not. If you engage in it, you're now performing an act of physics. You're now engaging in an energy that produces a result. And basically that's what Yeshua is trying to get us to understand, is how this creative world that we live in operates. And so separating from, if you say, oh, everything my parents did and everything that's going on in my culture is great, then, have at it, continue. But if you're really wanting to live a different life, a different world than what those folks have done, you're going to have to separate from their mind energy, from the dynamics that were taken in by them. So that's what he's speaking about with this particular passage. And then the next one, number 52, oh, pardon me, oops, page skipped, excuse me. Computers, they're so wonderful when they work. So the next statement, number 56, is, he who has known the world has found a corpse, and he who has found a corpse, the world is not worthy of him. Well, what the heck does that mean? You find a world, you found a corpse? Yeah. Creation happens not in this so-called physical world. The physical world is a reflection of the creation. Let's say, let's use an example. I use the idea of a radio. So we're listening to a piece of music on the radio, and we think that we're listening to first-time original. But obviously, if it's in that realm of physics, the expression of the radio, it was already existent for you to be able to listen to it. So it's not original. Anything's not original and alive, anything that's not coming from original and alive in the moment is dead. It is a corpse. So anything you're looking at in the world, and you remember in one of the canonized Gospels, he says, let the dead bury the dead. Everybody who's basing their lives on what they think they see in the world is living out of the replicate mind and simply repeating and repeating that which has gone before, and that which has gone before is dead. So if you're looking at corpse, if you're looking at the world, now it's wonderful, it's a beautiful expression. Enjoy it as such, but understand that that's what it is. Because if you let your creative focus be on what already exists, then you're letting your creative focus be from a corpse, and therefore you're not going to get an original creative process happening in your life. You're going to be stuck in the past, replicating the same things. And there's a book about that. You might want to download it from our website. Why is this happening to me again? Yeah, when people are stuck in the past, then all they can do is replicate. And that's not, what he's saying is that's not worthy, he uses the word world here in two different ways. That's not worthy of your original creative faculty. You remember in the Course in Miracles, I've talked before about that lesson, What is the World? And I wish that the Course, and it would have been nice here if they'd have capitalized and lowercase this word world, in the same way as I've suggested they do that in that lesson, What is the World of the Course? Because it talks about, the question is, that particular lesson in the workbook, what is the world? And that lesson goes on and says the world is false perception, is born of error, it is not left its source. Now, what is being talked about there is the lowercase w world. And if you live in that world, if that world is your source, then the lowercase w world has taken over your creative process, and you just produce another corpse. You produce another replication of the same. Why is this happening to me again? Now, in this particular passage, if the second time the word world is used, it were capitalized, then it would make more sense. So he who has known the lowercase w world has found a corpse, and he who has found a corpse. The world, capital W world, is not worthy of him. In other words, you're not bringing your original creative capacity and faculty into being. You're just replicating what went with the past. So he's saying, get with the original. let loose, forgive everything in you that is unlike your original creative nature, and then you enter into creation as a conscious creator of your life. Statement 57, he says, the kingdom of the Father is like a man who had good seed. His enemy came by night, and he sowed weeds among the good seed. The man did not allow them to pull up the weed. He said to them, lest perhaps you pull up the weed and pull up the wheat with it. In other words, you don't know till something comes to fruition what its real purpose is. He says, for on the day of harvest, weeds will be manifest. They will be pulled and burned. Remember, the word sin in Aramaic is an archery term. When you fired at the archery term and you missed the target, the scorekeeper would yell, sin. And you remember they said the wages of sin is death. The result of engaging in energy that does not uplift the original creative process is it dies. So what he's saying is, don't be concerned about it now. Wait till it comes to fruition, and you'll know what it is, because it's going to eliminate itself. It's going to self-destruct. All that is based in those energies that are off the mark is self-destruction. It's not a threat when you hear the wages of sin is death. That's not a threat. God's going to kill you or punish you for your quote-unquote sins. It's simply saying, here's how the creative process works. The result, if you engage in that which is not original, is deterioration, that which is not in harmony with what truth is about. So the world, in essence, what's being said is, it's a place for the expression of creation. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It does not distinguish. There is only one power now that does everything. So people get confused and say, well, if there's only one power that does everything, then why doesn't God just take care of all those evil things and make my life wonderful? Well, if God took care of all those quote-unquote evil things and made your life wonderful, you wouldn't be a creator. You wouldn't be fulfilling your full potential as a creative being. You'd be lost. So there's only one mover in the world, one power. And you and I are not it. It, however, said to us, tell me what you want, and I'll give it to you. Ask and you receive. Do you know how to raise your arm? Well, of course, I can raise my arm. Look, I'm raising it. No, I didn't ask you if you could raise your arm, because you can't, but you did. Well, wait a minute, that's confusing, Michael. So if you know how to raise your arm, tell me what brain cells fire in you at what voltages, because every electrical signal has a voltage. What's the voltage in what brain cells, and what pathways do they travel down in nerves in order to make contact at each muscle, and which muscles are involved and which nerves are involved in you doing something like raising your arm? And the truth is, you and I don't have a clue how to do that. There is a power in us that when we set the visual, raise my arm goes up. Yes, a power over which I have choice. That same power is the producer of everything. Remember another place in the scriptures. And again, this isn't religious. It's just telling people how the creative process works, how life works. You'll hear the statement in the scriptures, shall there be evil in the city and the Lord has not done it? There's only one moving power, and that power has chosen to give us rain. That power ran all of life until humans came along, and then the power said, I think I've done I can imagine this power that has run all of life from the beginning saying, this is pretty cool. Look at that rabbit over there. Look at the wolf. Look at the trees. Look at the flowers. Look at the bees. Look at the birds. Feel the wind. Look at the sun. I have done a great job. This is awesome. But, I'm in control of everything, and I have this one instrument of expression that I'm going to call human. And it's the pinnacle of creation, and I'm going to give it something that the rest of creation does not have. I'm going to give it the ability to originate something new that's never been seen. And the Creator gives us choice, free will. Not a faculty of the mind, but a faculty of the soul. If we lose our faculty, our spiritual faculty of choice, and turn it over to decisions in the mind, then whatever is stored in the mind from the past, the corpses in the mind, decisions and take over the creative process. That's what he was talking about when he talked about, if you found a corpse, then you're not fit for the creative world. You're not fit to function as a creator. So let your mind engage in an energy of what you call the negative, and that negative is what you'll receive. That negative is what the Creator will deliver to you, not tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, are you sure you really want that? But rather, I've given you choice, so engage in any frequency that you want. Allow that frequency to pass over your mind. And when enough energy for that frequency builds up, then I will deliver to you that which you've asked for. Now remember, the asker is not in the head, it's in the heart or the unconscious. Why Yeshua said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. Take care of the unconscious, because out of your unconscious comes your whole creative process, as long as you've got an unconscious. Take care of it. Heal it. Clean it up. And when you clean it up and remove everything from it that is out of harmony with life, then you end up in a conscious creative process. So everything is manifest by the Creator, but everything is not manifest of the Creator. If all free will were taken away, then everything would be manifest by the Creator and would be of the Creator. But the Creator said, okay, I've manifest everything today. And by the way, in Aramaic, the word manifest is not like, performing some sort of a magic trick. I'm going to manifest a new car. The word manifest in Aramaic is obvious. You build an energy and you build an energy and you build an energy and you engage in the weeds. You're brought up in an environment where life is pretty good and you're well taken care of. There's a presence of love. And, the culture says you get involved in the wrong crowd. And if you get involved with the wrong crowd and you engage in their creative process, now a field of good seeds is being filled with weeds. And if those weeds, if the negativity of the quote-unquote wrong crowd, as the culture would talk about it, becomes the stronger energy within your life, becomes obvious to you, when this happens, what I do with my crowd is I go and steal something. If that becomes like your mode of operation, if that becomes what becomes mentally acceptable and appropriate for you, then the weeds have taken over the weed. When that happens, we start off with creating negative results. If the negative results get our attention, that's why Yeshua is saying, you don't know which is weeds and which is wheat. Something that appears to be a weed can actually be the very thing that draws you into the truth. It can motivate you if you choose to do your work. So the moral force behind the creation, by its very nature, is continuously inviting expressions in the world, that is you and I, to adopt and emulate its nature. So the scriptures talk about how we live, move, and have our being in the Creator's energy field, in love. If we choose to receive communication from that, if we choose to acquaint ourselves with that, and we choose to worship that the best understanding in English of the word worship, people, I go to church and I listen to music and I weave and wave and it feels so good. Well, kids can do that at the nastiest rock concert. That's not worship. That's just feeding the energy field with what feels good. But when you become acquainted with the nature of the Creator and you realize that the Creator's love, then I think most appropriately we can replace the word worship with the word emulate. Are you going to take that as your guide and follow it and undo everything in you that is obvious to you that goes against that presence of love? So you can almost imagine, think about the whole evolutionary process. Remember, man is created in the image and likeness of God, period. Creation's finished of humans. And then Moses says, no man to till the soil. There was no physical component. Now we have the evolution of form. And all forms are designed, my offering would be, are designed to be an expression of the power that created them. Once we're given free will, we can go off track with that power. We can say, oh, to heck with you. I'm going to go do my own thing. Oh, I like this bright, shiny nastiness over here. Oh, I like this. I like the feeling of this thing called alcohol. Oh, feeling no pain. Oh, now I've just destroyed my the faculty of discernment. Now I do crazy stuff. And so people go off track and forget that their task is to emulate the Creator. That real worship means I function out of that. And, when people are under stress, you can tell exactly who their God is or what their God is. Because that's what they always turn to. So if under stress one turns to hostility or fear, you know that their God is hostility or fear, although they may go around talking about a God in heaven that they love and worship and honor and all that. But what you turn to in your deepest moments of stress. And so that means for all of us, there's a lot of work to be done to, refrain from turning to that and really get to the point where under stress, here's this person who's doing this horrible thing in front of you, and what you turn to is the advisor that is the presence of love. Now you're worshiping the Creator. Because when you turn to that and you function out of that, you will emulate love. You will not be, your behavior will not be determined by somebody or something out there or something from your past. Person who responds in rage and upset and blame and the look or the breath or whatever has really given the thumb to the Creator and said, I'm not interested in you. Here's what I like. So you kind of get a picture of, as the evolutionary process goes on, the Creator's building forms. My offering would be forms, the opportunity to adapt and bring expressions into what we call the manifest world, the physical world, that reflect what's still waiting back of us in the creation. So this elemental force that's moving in us is building forms that are capable of expressing everything that is in the Creator's capacity. But if we get stuck in the world, if we allow our awareness and our focus to be what's already there, then we're focused on a corpse and our higher development stops. When I realize that hostility and fear are of lower development, and if they run my mind, I apply forgiveness to get rid of them until I'm back in touch with, I'm back connected to the active presence of love in me. Now the Creator's energy field can instruct, develop, and build the next level of form. What's the next capability that's ready to come through? If we look at the things that Yeshua did, he was telling us exactly what the next things were, what we were really capable of. But until we give up our attachment to what's already existent, the corpse, then all we can do is replicate the corpse. We're always manifesting physically, mentally, emotionally, and in our worlds what our God is. So the Creator, in doing this process, however, again, was in control of all life till humans came along, then turned over the direction of each form to themselves, to that individual. If you choose to become aware of and consciously cooperate with the Creator, then your instrument, your body-mind unit, will develop whatever faculties are yet to come through into the world. And if you choose another direction, then your instrument, your body-mind unit, will deteriorate according to your choices. And then it continues on its unconscious path according to your decisions. When one does not understand this, when one does not understand this process, they tend to blame the Creator rather than thank the Creator. Everybody loves the idea of being a creator when the creation's going well. But when it's not going so well, doesn't everybody know whose fault it is? And isn't their name always them? And them in the mindset of a condemnatory idea or thought. When you take responsibility, then rather than locking into a condemnatory thought, you look at what you're creating and you go, oh, this is off the mark. You reconnect with love and you eradicate the energetic pattern of the deleterious creative process. And you go back to emulating the Creator. So again, when devolving, instead of moving upward, people always have somebody else to blame. And of course, they've got a name for it. And the name is Satan. The devil made me do it. And that becomes where people want to put responsibility for what's going on in their lives. But if you go to the Aramaic language, the word Satan in Aramaic has nothing to do with some dude with a red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork. The word Satan in Aramaic means the resistor, one who misleads. It's an internal pointer that says if something's manifest, if something's obvious to you and you manifest it in your creation and you live in blame, then your mind's going to lie to you. You'll go into resistance to the truth that you've created this. You go, oh, no, not me. And then comes the mislead. Then comes the story about how it's all somebody else's fault. Look, they did it to me. So that's the resistor, the one who misleads. And the word describes an internal process, not an external force. And it appears that the process simply goes on until we either choose to do the healing work and step into a continuously integrative energy, or engage in such disintegration that we ultimately die. And my offering is, all death is suicide. We are not designed to die. You have to engage. Nothing in the creation is designed to die. You have to engage in a disintegrative energy in order to bring death. And you go back to that story and you say, well, why is everything in the creation dying? Why do animals die? Why do trees die? Why do plants die? Well, if you go back into the creation story, you remember that in the origin story, it speaks about how man was given dominion. What does that mean? We were given dominion. Because nothing else in the creation that we know of can originate, what we originate and introduce into the world becomes part of that corpse. And it doesn't matter. The animal can't refuse the energy that's given to it because it doesn't have the faculty of choice. It has instincts built into it from evolution. Its physiology has instincts that drive it, yes. when a human who has dominion, who can originate a new mind energy that's never been seen in the creation, then everything within the realm is impacted by that. Just like, and people would say, well, that doesn't seem very fair. Well, here I am sitting watching television, got a beautiful picture, great sound, enjoying my TV set, and somebody drives into the driveway with a car that's poorly tuned. And all of a sudden, that energy coming from the car that's poorly tuned destroys my experience of this wonderful TV show that I'm watching. I say, well, that isn't fair. Well, it doesn't have to do with fair. It's just the way physics works. If someone has the ability to originate rage, fear, guilt, drama, trauma, hatred, vengeance, and it saturates the creation with that energy, and the more minds that join with it, the stronger the saturation of that energy becomes, the more the whole creation is impacted by it. That's what dominion meant over the world, over the birds and the beasts of the field, all of it, that they become subject to the origination of humans. The Creator originated prior to that. Now, you read some of the traditions in the ancient cultures, and when researchers went into some of those ancient centers and those ancient communities, what they were told, like for instance by tribes in remote lands that weren't touched by any of our quote unquote modern thinking, what they were told was that animals didn't die. The tradition and people observed the animal was there, and then the animal disappeared. The animal's energy was transmuted, and it moved beyond the physical realm, that it would just disappear. And there are stories from many different cultures of that being observed. And so recognizing more and more of the physics of the world, it's all physics. There is no metaphysics whatsoever. It is all totally and completely controlled by what's doing in the energy system. And so what Yeshua is pointing out here is how the whole creative process works. And it's not religion. It's just how the system works. So in this particular statement, he's telling us that function out of being as best you can, speak for what is right, and let the creation unfold. As you choose to emulate the presence of love, you will be given direction on what to do. That which is off the mark will destroy itself. And then statement 58. Let's see, it's 20 minutes to. Let's just check in and see if we've got anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room. Sweetie?
Nope, it is still quiet. So if someone has a question, press 1. We have 21 minutes.
Okay, and we've got 20 minutes. If anybody's out there in listener land, remember that if you're listening on one of the stations where we can't see you in our control panel, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show directly. And then if you push 1, that will raise a hand in the control panel. And Jeanie will know that you want to talk to us. So push 1 if you're out there and you have a conversation to offer. Otherwise, we'll move on to 58. 58 in the translation that we're using says, "Blessed is the man who has suffered. He has found the life." And that would be a translation that would be, I think, totally Greek in its orientation. That whole idea that, things are going to be great if you suffer, because, of course, kings, if you keep people, on poverty level and suffering, the king's coffers are full and he's having a rocking good time while everybody else is suffering. But there's another translation by two guys, Patterson and Mayer, and they speak of it just a little differently. That makes a whole lot more sense of it. Say, Yeshua said, "Congratulations to the person who has toiled and found life." In other words, Do your work, and there will be the reward. It's there. Because rather than being stuck in the corpse, rather than everything that it appears your eyes falls on and believing that that's your source, you found that the real source is beyond that, inside of you, that the richness of the inner world. And sadly, we live in a culture that when children come into the world, they show them all kinds of shiny baubles and beads and basically transfix their attention on the outer world, on what has already gone past, rather than letting them know the outer world, the manifest world, is here for you to enjoy, and recognize that in this process, you are a creator. So make sure that you spend time in the inner world as well as the outer world. Enjoy your creation, but make sure you keep in touch with the fact that it's your creation, rather than getting stuck in the lie that somebody else is doing it to you. And so when you recognize that it's your creation, and the creation's going a little wobbly or going off the rails, rather than blaming the corpse where your attention is, remember Yeshua says, let thine eye be single and thy body will be filled with light. That's another statement of physics. If you ask the latest understanding in physics, they'll tell you is that matter is light energy solidified. So light energy solidified, and what determines what is solidified? Let thine eye be single. Let your perception be singularly focused. If you're singularly focused on doing your work, and each time you arrive at a space of love, you go out into your creation and play, you're rocking. And if your creation goes off base, there may be some suffering involved, yes. And if you do your work and clean up the suffering part of your mind, it's going to feel like, and as this one translation says, toil. It's going to feel like toil. Point where you will touch into the presence of love that you are. And in doing so, you will directly be aware of being with the Creator, in the Creator's presence, in the presence of this pure, unfathomable expression of love. It will be, if you think about, you're out there in the daylight and it's bright and it's beautiful, and somebody comes along with a 10,000 candle power light and just shines it right square in your eyes. That's going to be the difference from living your life with your focus in the world and the point at which, for a time period, you're able to withdraw from that and connect fully with the power that is within you. It'll be like looking into a 10,000 candle power light compared to whatever the few hundred candle power of just ordinary daylight is. That's the reward that he's talking about, and the physiological experience of that. Remember Teilhard de Chardin that we talked about? He says that joy is the infallible sign of the presence of the Creator, the presence of God. I like to adjust that statement just a little bit, because if that were really true, everybody'd be in joy all the time. Joy is the infallible sign of the awareness. If we're only aware of what's going on in our minds and what's going on out there in the world, we're not in joy. We're not. We want happiness then. We want something. We want to achieve some kind of a goal so that we can be happy. Give up the happiness. Go for the joy. And that is, do the work that it takes to find the presence of active love in you that is so unfathomable and so beyond human expression that you cannot imagine what it's like physiologically, mentally, or emotionally. It is so transforming. So that would be my take on the expression 58. And then to 59, And my page just jumped. Give me a second to catch it here. Yeshua said, look upon the living one so long as you live, that you may not die to see him and be unable to see. And I relate to this one from an experience I had about, let me back up a little bit. I had some kind of intellectual thoughts about this, but about 2 years ago, I was doing a still point session. And in the still point session, I'm laying there breathing, and I'm specifically asked intuitively to look downward, to turn my eyes downward. It's like, I'm laying on a bed and I'm breathing, and I turn my eyes downward. And what I see is this vast field of darkness. It is so expansive, it is so huge, you can't imagine the size of it. It'd be like comprehending something larger than the world. And as I look at it, I notice there are all these tiny little lights in it, like an uncountable, unfathomable number of lights. And so I'm breathing away, and I see this, and I ask, what am I looking at? What is this? And what I'm told is, these are your ancestors and the darkness that they're living in. And they are asking you if you will support them in cleaning up that darkness. And so I instantly said, yes, of course I will do that. And as I did that, when I put that together, 2 plus 2, and how it relates to this particular passage, what I understood was, if you don't have a body-mind unit for expression, then you don't have the capacity to do your work, to enter into full realization of who you are as a human being. It takes a body-mind unit to do that. Excuse me, Jeanie just told me I'm sitting outdoors and there's a set of chimes here and they're too loud, so my apology. I'll remove the striker from it so it quiets down. So what I'm offering is that it's when we're in a form that we have the opportunity to do our work. If we don't have one, then we're just stuck in whatever state we're in. And it was like this flooring energy in that still point session that was asking me if I would help to process the darkness that my ancestors were living in. And that led to an opening for me as well, to comprehend, there's a story about how Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane took on the sins of the world, i.e., as a suffering, punished being. And I can remember as a kid being told that, yeah, see, it's your fault that he suffered. You drove in the nails. You didn't drive in the nails. It's not your fault. And he wasn't suffering any more than in that state where I was asked by my ancestors to help them process their darkness, that I was suffering for their darkness. It was, to me, in that moment, it was like privilege. It was like, oh, absolutely, I'm here to do that 2,000%. I can actually assist you with that? Wow! And so when I put Yeshua's final words on the cross together with that happening in the Garden of Gethsemane, I can easily imagine, and I suspect what Yeshua was going through was, oh, I see that I can assist. I can take on this energy. I can help to process it. Doesn't mean I'm going to suffer for it, but I can, because I have a body-mind unit, I can help process that. What a privilege. And then you'll remember on the cross, the Greeks, once again, in their good old-fashioned pain way, told us that Yeshua was abandoned by God. Now, of course, they're going to tell us that he's God, but then he's abandoned by God, which is kind of silly. Like, how does God get abandoned by God? Doesn't make any sense at all. But in Aramaic, the words Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which incidentally, in the Greek scriptures, and you'll listen to most of the scholars, you go to most of the scholars and most of the educational institutions today, and they'll tell you it was all written in Greek. But then there's this little passage, few little words, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, and it says this was left in the original Aramaic. Like, hello? The books that you are reading in your Greek insanity says that the original was Aramaic. Here it is, right here in writing. And by the way, those words, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, do not translate, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Any more than he was suffering in the Garden of Eden, or pardon me, in the Garden of Gethsemane. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani was said with excitement and delight, because it was a moment where Yeshua had the insight into, at a whole new and deeper level, why he was going through all of what he went through. So his words, instead of, my God, why hast thou forsaken me, were a much more intimate greeting that said, oh, Papa, Papa, for this you set me aside. For this you reserved me. So when I had this opening experience where I'm seeing this darkness my ancestors in, they're asking for help, it's really clear. This is not a burden. This is not a load. This is a gift. This is a privilege. This is an opportunity that we all have when we choose to do our work. We can open the space to process the darkness that our ancestors are carrying. And so as you breathe, and I invite you to consider that, Yeshua considered it a gift and a blessing. The words Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, more properly translated, are not my God, like some sort of distant figure, but rather Papa, Papa, Father, Father. Ah! And it was said with a soft and open heart and a relaxed physiology. Ah, I got it. For this you set me aside. I came into the world to bring the active presence of love, to teach humans that they are love, and now they can destroy my physiology, and I get to show them that it has no effect, because I didn't get lost in the course of their actions. So even they're going to kill my body, they can't kill me because I'm not locked into their world. Ah, for this you set me aside. You sent me here. You gave me this opportunity, this privilege to give that gift to the world, a demonstration that was just so beyond what anybody could conceive of. So look upon the living one, so long as you live, that you may not die and seek to see him and be unable to see. What a gift. Having a human form, being gifted with a human form, you have an opportunity that you do not have if you have no medium of expression, no body. Step into that and a whole different level of creation happens. So I'm going to invite you to take a moment and again breathe with that. Breathe with me on that. And imagine what it would be like There's another passage that comes to mind where Yeshua gives the example of the man, or the scriptures give the example of the man who is poor and suffering and is always begging from the rich man. And the rich man dies. And it's like, well, you were totally focused in the corpse, the dead world of stuff. So you got all your stuff. So you've had your reward. And now that you've had your reward, too bad. It's over. You've lost your opportunity to take your life to the next level. And the poor man, who was always begging at his door, he says, well, can you send him to just give me a drop of water on my mouth to quench my thirst? I want this so much, but, well, he had a body and the opportunity to accept it and live in it. He didn't do it. He was too enamored with the corpse, too enamored with what was going on in the world. He says, well, can you at least send a messenger to my brothers so they don't get lost in this? Well, they've got their bodies. They've got an opportunity to do some work. So it seems like an important enough point, the way the last couple of passages have come together from the Gospel of Thomas, that it may be a good time to just join in taking a couple of deep breaths. Close your eyes and just allow yourself to rest in your silent physiology. And imagine what it would be like to be Yeshua, literally hanging on the cross and not lost in any of the world's corpse ideas, any of this death, the suffering, the pain, the trauma, but he's totally attuned to the presence of the Creator. And he addresses the Creator. He's in such ecstasy that he addresses the Creator with gratitude for the lesson that he's given the opportunity to bring to humanity. Like, oh, Papa, I got it. It was to bring this lesson to humanity that you set me aside. And just allow yourself to take a deep breath and notice anywhere in your physiology that's tight. Let it soften, let it open. And breathe in the active presence of love to every cell in your structure. And if it's appropriate, I invite you to reaffirm your willingness to allow everything that's unlike love in you, while you're in a form with the opportunity to do that work, recommit yourself to forgiving, to removing everything that never belonged in the human energy field, so that there is space. Carve out ask for the Creator, carve out a space in me for your wholeness. And let yourself just take a few minutes when the show completes to stay connected to that space of such a presence of gratitude and of love that it's pretty much beyond human comprehension. And allow yourself to come back to this moment, and please create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world.